In the last 3 weeks, we were talking about the failure case report structure. Just a reminder, this is the structure that we have to follow. We need to have 4 headings. The first heading is introduction and scope. The second heading is discussion. The third heading, evaluation and recommendation. And finally, we have references. Now, in the introduction and scope, we need to have general overview or opening statement and category of the case study or the failure case. We also need to have a thesis statement. As for discussion, we have 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph, it needs to have a topic sentence, all the causes of the failure and all the effects, while the second body paragraph is the analysis, where you have to have at least 2 actions with their supporting details. You could add as many actions as possible, but you need to keep in mind your word count. Now, an important note regarding body paragraphs is that in the first body paragraph, which we call it a description, we need to have in-text citation, while in the second body paragraph, in-text citation are not required. Now, moving into evaluation and recommendation or conclusion, we need to wrap up the general idea by summarizing the main point or restating the thesis statement. Then we need to evaluate the action that we have already mentioned in the second body paragraph by saying what could have or should have happened to avoid the failure. And the same thing for the action, the second action. We need to evaluate that action. Then we need to have a recommendation for the future of the category. You could add 1 general recommendation for the category of the industry only, not the failure. And finally, you have the references. Now I'm going to show you an example of a reading, an engineering failure reading, and a complete sample of the failure case report. Now this is the general reading for the engineering. As you can see, this is the title. So obviously this is the crash of Air France flight, and the date, the place, okay, and the number of passengers as well as crew members. And we have all the details here along with the causes, also the causes, the result, okay, and all other details along with the source. So what should we write? The first thing we have to keep in mind, the structure that we have just discussed. So we have the introduction and scope, we have discussion, evaluation and recommendation, and references. Now, the introduction. Aviation technologies have witnessed development throughout the years. However, drastic crashes and failures still occur. So this is the opening statement or the general overview highlighting the category. The second sentence of the introduction and scope is a brief description of the failure or the problem. And then we have the thesis statement. The aim of this report is to identify the causes and effects, analyze the case, and evaluate its action to give possible recommendation. Now, if we move down, we have the discussion where we need to have 2 body paragraphs. This is the description, and here is the analysis, but no headings are required. The report and the body paragraph here starts, there are different factors that contributed to Air France flight, and here is the exact date and year, place. So this is the topic sentence and answering the question what, where, when. Now, since factors contributed to this failure, so we say firstly there was a technical damage in the thrust. Okay, so this is obviously a cause. Secondly, there is another cause. Okay, and after that, so we have like the events one after the other and the damages that happened, another cause in here, and then we have a result and also another effect, and of course you need to give example details in your own language, and additionally this is like the aftermath or the final outcome, and finally you have the in-text citation. This is all based on the reading I showed you a minute ago. Now, and then we move into the second body paragraph, the analysis paragraph, where we don't have any in-text citation. Mind you, you need to mention at least 2 actions that happened during the failure or after. Now here I've chosen 2. The first one, it has to do about mechanics and workers not clearing the runway. Okay, that indicates and your analysis. Another one is about the captain contacting the air traffic control tower. Okay, and that shows lack of problem solving skills, for example. Now, mind you, these actions, okay, will be later reflected in the last paragraph, which is the evaluation and recommendation. So if we just go into the evaluation and recommendation, this is a wrap-up of the whole idea. Okay, obviously it is the object, the sharp object, that caused huge damage to that aeroplane or that flight in particular, and aeroplanes in general. And then we need to use the if conditionals by saying if the workers had been more careful in doing their work and cleaning the runway, the front tire would not have exploded. So the front tire actually exploded, so we are just hypothetically saying if the workers had been more careful. Another one, if the captain did not fly at high speed and have contacted the air traffic control, the airplane would not have crashed into the hotel. Okay, so this is like evaluation of the actions mentioned in the body paragraph before, and then we could add our recommendations. One recommendation in here, it is highly recommended for workers in the airport to clean the runway beforehand. okay, and why we could add that or we could just leave it. In addition, another recommendation also, it is recommended for aeroplane companies to hire professionals to run technical checks on airplanes and runways to avoid such crashes. And finally, you have the references where you could actually, if you have more than one, you need to order them alphabetically, and mind you, with hanging indentation. So that was an example for the for an engineering incident.